Thank you so much for joining us.
First of all, I can't believe anybody would show up at Sundance. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have to. I can't believe it was a full house, so I appreciate it. And also, just seriously, we had our premiere last night, which was great, after party, and I was so wired from just getting to this point that I literally have not had any sleep, and I'm usually very articulate, but I'm not sure I will be. So take it easy on me, please.
Yes, please.
I'm ready to pass out.
I'll just start with a couple of quick questions, and I'd love to throw it out to the audience as well. So you've done fiction before, but you're primarily known as a documentary filmmaker. Can you talk a little bit about what brought you to this project? I know you were also working on a documentary series about Bundy as well. So which came first?
Well, I mean, it's just it seems like some grand master plan on my part to like have these two things come out around the same time. Sundance starts the 24th, started on the 24th, which is the 30th anniversary of Bundy's execution, and it just seems like, wow, how whatever. But a total accident. The whole thing is, as most great adventures are, a lot of it is happenstance. In February of 2017, some tapes landed on my desk from Stephen Michaud, who wrote the book Conversations of a Killer, based on these tapes, and he said he was a fan of my work. You want to take a look at the tapes? So I did, because I'm fascinated with Bundy, but I wasn't sure I had anything to add to the immense volume of literature and stuff out there. But the tapes were this chilling, deep dive into the mind of the killer, and I thought there was something new to offer. And I was sitting with my agent in April, just talking about wanting to take another run at a scripted movie, because my last one didn't work out so well. People know my filmography. And it's been a while since I made a film, and I was mentioning this project, and a light bulb went off in his head. This Michael was CIA, and he remembered that a producer, Michael Costigan, had this great script, extremely wicked, and so he thought I'd be interested in it. So I read it, loved it, and I figured me liking it would be the first baby step of a multi-year process that indie films take forever. And then a few weeks later, so I got on the phone with Michael, and I guess I said the right thing since he liked my take, and we decided to. And Michael's been trying to get this movie made for years. It's on the Hollywood blacklist of scripts. We know what the blacklist is, scripts that people in Hollywood love, but somehow haven't had a chance to get made or whatever. And it's Michael Werwie wrote the script, brilliant script, and it was an Academy Nichols Prize winner. It's just a script people have liked, people have been attached before but couldn't get made. So I figured, okay, I'm reading this, and maybe in 5 years, that's how long these things take. Just a couple of weeks later, since I'm at CAA, they brought up the project at a meeting. Zach's agent said, hey, Zach is looking to do something different. Do you mind if you read it? I'm like, that's perfect, let him read it. He immediately loved it, said yes, we got on the phone. Can was starting. Michael said, do you want mine if we take it to Can? I've had the script for 4 weeks in my life. Zach signs on, Lily signs on, we take it to Can, Voltage Pictures signs on, they fully finance it. And literally 5 weeks from me reading the script for the first time to sorry, this is such a long story, but it's just bizarre. So there was a 5-week period, and then the movie's greenlit. But I'm in the middle of doing a doc series. Netflix was cool and allowed me to go shoot the movie. But by the time we were actually in hard craft and shooting the movie, the doc series was kind of laid out, and it was an editing job, so I could leave it to my team at Radical. And yeah, so that's how it all happened. And it was actually it was great because all the production heads, the department heads, could rely on my doc team in New York to get photos. We had our archivists on the doc series uncovered stuff that had never been seen before, and so the movie had access to all that, so it just worked great. But originally the movie was supposed to come out in September, but because of Actor of Veil, pushed it just plus you can't count on getting into Sundance. Sure. So the fact that it's all happened now is very fortuitous, but things happen for a reason, and I think the two projects reflect so nicely off of each other because the Bundy unscripted series, if you want to know every detail of every crime and understand what a horrible, evil person this was, it's there, and that's kind of inside the mind of the killer. And my objective with this film and why I was attracted to the script and why I think the script was so brilliant is this allows us to reframe the conversation and make it be about, the it's been described as this is the POV of Lily, or Elizabeth Klopfer. That's it's a little hard to describe in the marketing materials exactly what I intended. It's not really the POV of Lily, I want to give the audience the same experience of what it's like to be seduced by a psychopath, what it's like, how one becomes a victim. Elizabeth Klopfer luckily, survived, but she's still a victim, of course. But so many people were lured to their death because of that charm, and that's what I was trying to. So yeah, anyway, that's what I was trying to achieve.
So I'm going to talk about the process about working with actors.
Yeah, I feel like I'm very collaborative, and I'm not saying this. You asked the question, but I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, just to understand my process. Every actor on that movie told me, wow, this was the most collaborative experience I've ever had. And that comes from, I think, my many years in documentary where I have to drop into a situation, quickly assess, and capture reality. And reality doesn't always cooperate, so you have to pivot and just follow the story. That is my whole philosophy when I come into a movie. Obviously, you have to be very prepped and prepared to know exactly what you want to do on the day. But I'm very open to other people's ideas. Because then I'll take credit for them during the award season. So I'm very, I have a plan, but I'm always happy to deviate from the plan. And I don't like to rehearse a lot. Rehearsal for me is just sitting around the table and talking about character. I don't like putting things off and rehearsing. Because again, it's like the whole idea of just create some magic on the sets that reality can happen. A lot of these moments were improv. A lot of these camera movements we changed on the fly. But you have to come in with a game plan. And that's the lesson, of course, I learned on Paradise Lost, is we went down to make a film about horrible teen monsters. That's what HBO wanted. Satanic kids killing kids. That's what was the assignment. And if we had just locked into our mission, that's what the film was about, we would have missed the story, which was these kids were actually innocent because everyone else thought they were guilty. So anyway, that's my process.
Great. Other questions? I saw one close over here. Oh, yeah, right here.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it's like to make a movie about somebody who's done some violent things, and keep violence to a minimum and even sort of to the end of the relationship.
Great question. So the question is about I guess the idea of making a film about somebody who's done such violent things, but sort of withholding that violence until the very end, making that decision.
Yeah, I'm not interested. Look, and some people have said here and there, oh, you're glorifying. They would look at different. Oh, you're glorifying. But the last thing I'm doing is glorifying. I've spent like 20 years in the criminal justice system, advocating for victims, advocating for criminal justice reform. I mean, the last thing I'm going to do is glorify a killer. So there have been many, many great movies and many, many terrible movies, that are a catalog of violence. That to me is not interesting. What's interesting to me is the enduring lesson of Bundy. I mean, America has 5% of the world's population, but we've had 67% of the world's serial killers. That's about 2,800 documented serial killers. And the FBI estimates that at a given time, there are 25 to 50 serial killers actively operating in this country. But the name that always rises to the top is Bundy, despite all of these other names. And the reason I'm fascinated with Bundy, and I think why other people are, is that he blows up the stereotype of what you want to think a serial killer is. We want to think a serial killer is some, creepy social outcast because that implies you can identify him in society, and therefore you can avoid him. But as Bundy says at the end of the film, killers don't come out of the shadows with long teeth and blood dripping off their chin. They're the people closest to us. And in my sorry. I learned my lesson. Sorry. What was my last comment? Right. So the enduring lesson of Bundy is that the people who do evil in our society, whether it's a priest who commits pedophilia, or I've covered these things before, a corporate CEO of a polluting corporation who goes to bed at night knowing he's killing tens of thousands of people, but is, I'm sure to his friends and family, an incredibly upstanding guy, the people who do the worst things in society are those who present themselves as the nicest. Unfortunately, that's the truth, and so that is what I wanted to make. I'm not interested in the violence. I'm interested in showing how you can become seduced by this type of psychopathic behavior, and also, which I know is controversial, and a lot of the experts will say that I'm wrong, but is a psychopath capable of love? Why did he kill her? And the reason that's not a gratuitous question for me is I think there is a, again, we want to think that serial killing is this separate, aberrant behavior, and of course, it is horrendous, but, and I'm not defending serial killing, it sounds like, it's on, there's one spectrum to me of sociopathic behavior, and on one end are just jerky assholes who are mean to people unnecessarily but pretend to be great guys. We know a lot of bosses like that, so that's sociopathic behavior. Then there's the pedophilic priest, then there's, people who do terrible things, and then, on the far end of it are serial killers. And what that means to me is that these are all human beings, three-dimensional human beings. They're not some two-dimensional monster out there. They have other sides to themselves, and as a father of daughters, I think that's a lesson that I want my children, they can't hear enough. People need to earn your trust at the end of the day. Anyway, that's my
How does that feel?
No. As a documentarian, truth is very important to me, but even in a documentary, the truth is subjective truth. You're going for the emotional truth of the situation. And that final confrontation happened on the phone between Ted and Liz. It wasn't in person. Just another phone call in this movie, I felt would be not as nearly dramatic as a face-to-face confrontation. And she never posed the question hacksaw. And he beat around the bush, but she felt, because this is based on her memoir, if you read her memoir, she felt that this final phone conversation he was finally admitting to her, but he had to beat around the bush and give her clues because he didn't want to implicate himself because people would listen, That's why Hacksaw is written, he erases it because he doesn't really want to tell other people. And that was our one invention. Everything else, one of the reasons we put the clips at the end is that if you had to write this as a script, well, it was written as a script, but it wasn't based on truth, you'd think, there's no way. I mean, what guy escapes from prison once, let alone twice, and then when he's on the lam in Florida, you would think anybody, and this is what's so fascinating, any rational person, even if you've done something terrible, you've escaped from prison twice now, and you're on the lam in Florida, you would think he would lay low. But that compulsion to kill just grew so strong that he did his worst killings, arguably. 2 deaths and attempting to kill 5 people in the night, he successfully killed 2. And then, he does 4th, the Chi Omega, runs down the street to another residence and bludgeons another girl. 3 of the women survived, but he was attempting to kill them all. And then a few weeks later, he does his, the worst killing, which is 12-year-old Kimberly Leach. That compulsion to kill when after you've had all that experience. I forgot how I got here, sorry.